So we have Marco Genovesi. Did I say that last name right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's back on the show again, and this time he's going to do a short little workshop with us on explaining how curves work in Photoshop and how you can match it to the plate. While I am more familiar with the levels, and I have played with curves in the past, I've learned those first actually, but I got away from it because I was having issues with it back in the day, and I never turned back. But he's probably going to convince me to go back to curves, and we're going to check it out. And yeah, he's the head. Remember, he's the head of the map painting department for NPC, and so he has
London,
insane amount of experience, many years in the industry, working on the big blockbuster. Haven't you won best visual effects, right, for Jungle Book, right? You did Jungle Book. How many movies have you won an Oscar for?
Well, there is 1917 as well. I didn't do a lot, but I did contribute a little bit on that one too.
So you've been having a crazy industry, and I'm going to share my screen real quick to show people your profile quickly on the ATMO website, which is basically a portfolio website like ArtStation, but it's more organized. And originally I was hyper focused on everything environment art, and I am recently expanded it to FX, and I'm in the current stages of expanding it to characters and creatures. So I'm slowly expanding it to get bigger and bigger, so everything will still maintain the organization. You can check out the values. And now what I've changed before that some people might have been confused on is that I had a community section which kind of split up between the seniors and the others. I got rid of that. It's too confusing. So now everyone's on the homepage, and all you have to do now is you can view all of them, or you can check out senior work, student work, junior, all that stuff, and whip. So everything's just on one page. And for the recruiters out there, you can, if you're searching for any artists out there, you can, and any skill level you want, you can go here and search, and you can type in the keyword, and we'll search through those skill or experience levels. And for all those people that are against AI, you can report AI on here, because this platform does not support AI for the most part. Some studios have some AI in there as tools, but if you're just using AI completely, no, that is not going to get you a job in industry, and I do not support that at all. Yeah, and the next stage is try to get Glaze on here, if Glaze will respond to me. So anyone out there that knows Glaze personally, tell them to check their messages, because I've been trying to hit them up for quite some time now. And let's get it integrated. So his work will be Marco Genovesi. And you check out all his badass stuff over here. And you can go into his profile as well. So let's get into how you made these things with curves, I guess. Right?
Oh yeah, I love curves. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can screen share, and
Yes.
I've prepared something for you.
Let me end the screen share. So for everyone, I have actually provided him with a plate. So basically, I'm a studio going to him, and he's like a contractor, and I'm just like, okay, I need you to do something to this plate, whatever you want to it. So I sent it to him in ASYS log, and that will be our LUT basically.
So probably I should show the plate first, which is this guy here. This is what you've delivered to me.
Yep.
In log, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I've prepared something. You wanted to have a castle integrated. Obviously, I went for a very, very famous one, Neuschwanstein. I don't know if I've pronounced it correctly, but I've tried. And the photo is from Flickr, but it's Creative Commons. But let's go back to the similarities between levels and curves. Some people get intimidated by curves. And I just wanted to show that there is essentially, you have those handles here, which are pretty much the same as those handles and the curves, the extremities. So if you're moving let's say the yellow arrow, you're not doing anything else than moving the top handle towards the left. If you're moving this handle, you're moving this one down, and so on and so forth. So it's really similar. And what curves are, they're a lookup table. It means that there is an input, and per every number in the input, you have an output. So what you can do, let's actually create curves. them there. So let's say that you want to create a handle in the middle, which is pretty much this guy here, and you're moving it per any number that is equal, any pixel that is equal to 128, your output is going to be 200. Obviously, for each one of the channels. Now we're just controlling the brightness of the overall image. So the interesting thing about curves is that this is a lookup table. So for each input, for each number in the input, you have an output. So if we create, for instance, a handle right in the middle, the input is the same as the output, but and same here and here. But obviously you can move those up and down. And what that means is that all of a sudden you have the same output number, 1 to 7, also in other locations. So let's say if, for instance, we make a gradient, let's make it black and white just to make it very obvious. Here we go. We go up and down in brightness. And this is actually very, very useful. Maybe not so much for grading, but if you have to start doing procedural stuff, animation, these kind of tools are very, very useful, especially Nuke. Anyway, it's just something that comes handy in many instances. Another thing that is incredibly useful is this little guy here. Essentially, you have an icon that allows you to pick a color, and then that color, you can drag it up or down if you want to have more or less brightness in this case, but you can also work per channels. So if you want to have, let's say, less red at this point, and more red at this point, is super, super easy. And then maybe you want to control the green because here you want it a little bit more blue. It's very easy. And a little bit more yellow here.
That's cool.
There we go. So it's a very powerful tool. Is probably one of the best ones for me when I'm grading. I'm using it all the time together with saturation and maybe color balance. But yeah, let's go to the exercise. So this is the little test I've done in just a few minutes. It's not perfect, but it's just something I wanted to do to prep for this session. And again, this is the plate in log. This is the LUT that was delivered.
Mm-hmm.
It's been applied as a color lookup adjustment layer. This is the file, ACIS LUT cube.
Now, you are personally used to doing it through the color proof.
Yes. So at MPC, we have a completely different color pipeline. We have an ICC profile that we turn on and off with the action buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But we use also color lookups, but to do something different, to essentially to neutralize the action of the color lookup, the screen LUT. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a different approach, but it doesn't matter. For this exercise, we can just go with this one.
There are ways you can export out I think it's CLL files out of Nuke or out of Photoshop, and you can make your own color proof profile or something.
Well, we are using ICC profiles.
Yeah, ICC profile. So you can save out ICC file and then make your own. You just have to put in a Photoshop file, and then you can do basically what that does is just it puts a color grade over your Photoshop file, and it's not an actual layer. So it actually speeds up your file if you have a lot of layers to work with. So it just depends on your workflow, what your studio or your situation is. But what we're doing here is the correct way as well. Depending on, it's flexible. It depends on what you want to do with your studios and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing you have to remember is that you need to turn off this little guy if you're exporting your image to Nuke. But we're going to see the export in a minute. So once again, the task was to integrate a castle. So I've downloaded the image and I've created a mask just to be ready. So usually I work with smart objects because those give me the best possible level of flexibility, and I can go back to old files. I can change the perspective, I can change the scale, and nothing is lost. The resolution is still there. And if I need to do anything, I can reopen the file, fix it, and then automatically my master PSD is updated. So it's super, super handy, and I really am a big advocate of it.
Cool.
Of this
Can you
kind
actually
of
demonstrate
approach.
that real quick, if it doesn't take long?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've just created the smart object. What I'm doing now, I'm copying it to my master file. So it's here. And I can make it smaller. Validate that. And I can change my mind. I can make it very big again. I mean, now the colors are a little bit broken, but I can fix that very quickly. So let's say my beloved curves, I apply this in normal, so they're not really affecting the plate.
So you're working underneath the LUT. It got blown out like that because the LUT itself is just giving a crazy look. And now you're essentially trying to flatten the image, because if you just show it real quick, if you disable the LUT, now it's equal to the flat log form of that. So because then when we bring it into Nuke, everything will look correct.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think it's a little bit saturated, this image, so I want to bring down the saturation a little bit. The plate looks a bit desaturated, and then I'll try to improve things later on, integration and everything. But the bottom line is, if I need to change anything on this guy, maybe let's say that I make it smaller. So I can validate my transformation, and let's say that I want to change something on the castle. Rather than painting directly here, let's say, I don't know, there is something that needs to be fixed. Rather than creating a fix that is linked to the resolution and to the position of this version of the master file, I'd rather go back to the source material. You double click on the layer, it's opening the file, and once the file is open, you can do any sort of fixes here. Then you're saving it, and it should go back. And in fact, now we don't have the windows.
So you save. So when you save, it updates.
It does, yes. It does update the master.
When you do the smart file, you save it as the PSD or whatever. And how heavy does that get when you have tons of layers?
Your master file gets heavy, but the advantages are really, in my opinion, are so great. It's worth the file size. And I don't think it's so much heavier at calculating it. It's more a matter of the scale of the file, because in the PSD, you need to save all the layers as normal, plus the smart objects, so the source data. So that's the disadvantage. But again, imagine that I've done the fix directly on the master file. Yeah. So I've deleted those windows, right? let's pretend that I've done it. I'm gonna paint with a very obvious color. So this window is gone, this window is gone, this window is gone. And then all of a sudden, my client says, or my supervisor says, I actually want it very, very big now. So whatever painting I've done is gonna look completely blurred and not appropriate for this scale. Whilst because I've painted on the source file, everything has moved together. I cannot see a patch. Everything is consistent.
Yep, it's certainly powerful. That's for sure.
It's very, very powerful.
Now you have your curves and hue saturation aren't clipping to it. You're using the group to keep it inside there.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the idea is that whenever you're creating a layer in depth, you want to use a group that is blending normal, because that's going to be easier to translate in Nuke. If you're doing a scanline render, it's much easier to just have levels in one card after the other in normal. I mean, you could split them and you could blend them in whatever blending mode, but this is the cleanest way. Of course, you can clip things like that, but if you're clipping, you cannot apply the same color transformations to another copy without copying all the gradings. And then if you're changing this grading here, then you have to change it also on the other copy, which is not super handy. So let's imagine that, for instance, I want to do, I'm going to delete this one for a second, yeah? So let's say this guy, I like the scale, but obviously the perspective is off. So I'm going to do something really quick and dirty right now, but it's just for the sake of proving my point. So what I would do, I would separate this face and from this face here, right? So I'm making a mask. I'm inverting the mask. So now I have them separated. And if I had these guys clipping on this layer, this other layer would be orphan of those changes. And obviously this is not graded properly, just still, but I can go here and say I want more blue, and now both those layers are actually taking those decisions. So this is the advantage of having a group in normal. So just carry on with this guy.
Yeah, that definitely reduces the amount of layers that are in your Photoshop file. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, I should spend way more time to fix the perspective and make it look natural, but here we are trying to just prove some points rather than do something perfect. Anyway, at this point, you have to make a decision. You have to put the castle behind this cliff here, those trees, and you have to make a decision. Are you going to do it with a mask on this layer, or are you going to duplicate the plate and put the plate on top? There is no right or wrong per se. It's always a matter of context. So if you have parallax, obviously you need to have another copy of the plate in front. If you're just delivering a flat image, you could easily create a mask. But personally, I always like to set things up in a way that allow me to move things around very, very quickly. So I don't know. Sometimes it's easier if you're creating a copy of the plate and perhaps this allows you also to make some changes to the shadowing, or some manipulations. So perhaps that's my preference in this case. The way I would do the mask of the trees, well, there are many different ways, but what we could try is maybe probably do crazy grading, and then we look at the channels and we see if we can extract some good information from any one of those channels.
This is actually a useful technique with cutting out clouds if you pump up
Yeah,
the saturation.
yeah. Obviously, the image is just a JPEG, so it's a little bit
Yeah,
broken. It's not super easy, but
yeah.
you could start from this guy, for
You'd get
instance.
a much higher quality image if you're working on a film or TV.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, and obviously, it takes a little bit of work to clean it up. I'm a big fan of very, very clean masks, so normally I would go in and I would make sure that there are no flying pixels anywhere. Clean masks are really a must, especially if you don't want to have a fight with your compositors. Um, but also for yourself, it gives you great satisfaction when everything is properly done.
Yeah.
At this point, maybe we can just bring up the whites a bit more. And let's see how it looks like.
Cool.
Okay, maybe we could make the castle a little bit smaller. I can totally see here we're missing some
What are you thinking about when
opaque
you're trying to get
pixels.
it into the right scale? What's going through your head?
Well, I think I should really look at the whole picture, but then you're looking for clues. I mean, this is a much smaller building, and this should be further away. So you're kind of trying to relate. But that's absolutely. I mean, because we don't have a good spatial context, you cannot tell if this is right behind those trees and bigger, or maybe it's supposed to be smaller because there is a little valley here and it should be even lower. So you have to make a creative decision, I suppose. And I guess because we are doing this as a test, I would say probably this is the right scale. Maybe even a tiny bit smaller. Just composition wise, it feels a little bit more natural. So here I have a little bit of an edge. One thing I can quickly do, I mean, again, there are so many different techniques and tips and tricks, but super quick, what I could do is just paint a more appropriate color. Soft brushes should never be used, to be honest, but this is not my computer, so I don't have my brushes. Again, for the
And do you
sake of
usually
speed.
with a mouse or tablet?
Well, it depends what I have to do. I would say tablet, obviously, but in the past few years, I had to learn how to use a mouse because, yeah, working remote and things like that, it was difficult with the tablet at first. And I still had to deliver stuff, so I couldn't really shy away from new
That
ways,
must be
new old ways.
brutal.
Yeah, it's not
Is it good
it's not
for
great,
hands,
but
especially all the clicking? I
yeah, the clicking is annoying, right?
yeah.
Okay, so let's say that maybe we're missing a little bit of light at the top. These are definitely too dark. Let me do it maybe on this guy.
So you're lifting up the blacks, and
Yes.
are you
I'm just
comparing it to
looking at the
something?
top part.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the top part. I'm kind of I'm trying to be inspired by everything around the castle. You have some darks, but they're quite occluded, and those turrets, they're quite exposed to the skydome, which is fairly, it's not overcast, but it's quite diffused. As you can see here, you have layers of
Yeah.
very diffused thin clouds. And I don't know, maybe there is also a little bit of a softness in the lens used. So it may be that that's contributing also as with a bit of lens haze. So maybe perhaps the light direction is not exactly matching, and I should paint a little bit more light in here. It feels a bit better, at least here. And one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to affect too much the whites. So I'm using these to remove my lifting on what's already quite bright. Let's see. Sometimes you have to flick and you have to turn it on and off.
So what
And
you did there was use the blend diff to remove the highlights, so you're just affecting
yes,
the blacks.
and then obviously you want to have some occlusion at the
Mhm.
bottom. So you can go here and just create a bit of a ramp. So that feels immediately better. Maybe a bit more here. Sometimes you want to accumulate several ramps with a lower level of opacity. Maybe general one. Perhaps I can back off a little bit, and then maybe I can do something here at the very top. I'm just looking at those rocks, and they're so front lit, whilst this is more side lit. So yes, it is gonna take a little bit of work, and maybe this is not the right session to do that, but I can show you what my approach would be. Probably now I'm a little bit too slow with the highlight. One cool thing you can do with curves is that once the handle is selected, you can move it with the arrow keys, so you can be very, very precise. Maybe I want to add a little bit of blue, perhaps remove the red a tiny bit. So I've created the handle just clicking here, and now what I'm doing is I would just want to give it a touch of less red in that point. So I'm using the arrow keys to do that.
What's making you decide to remove some red?
Well, it felt like there is quite a lot of blue in the sky dome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is a good reference, right? Because it's supposed to be the same color on both sides. That's my assumption. It's probably white, and I'm looking at the difference between these two colors. And no matter if the castle is more yellow than this, uh, the difference should stay the same. So, for instance, if I'm taking this part and this part, and then copying it, let me, and then I'm moving that copy to the castle. Here we go. So So I should be able to get a good indication of where the castle should be in terms of colors. And granted that it may be darker because it's older and dirtier, the distance should be very, very similar. So if I'm doing now, I can manipulate my reference, which are these two samples. I can add curves and click them. And now I can try to match the bright, and then the darks will follow. Now here I've added a little bit of shadow because of the trees around, and so I want to go up to where, there we go. So I'm a little bit too dark in the shadows. That's what I'm seeing. But the instinct of adding the blue, removing the red, which means adding green and blue, was the right one. I just have to bring back a bit of brightness there. So I don't want to add another key. I want to do it in a cleaner way. Maybe something like that.
So when you're picking your points on the curve, what's making you decide to pick in certain areas? Because I know you're this darkers and the brights, but then you have the in betweens, the far left point, and then you have the midpoint, and you're picking points specifically, closer to the center, not as close to the center. What's your mindset there?
Well, the thing is that you're managing an image that is supposed to be log at this point, right? Because the screen LUT here is expecting a log file underneath, and this is where I think levels may be a little bit tricky. I mean, levels give you the gamma through that middle handle, but then you may want to. Essentially, I'm combining two things here. I'm combining the log transformation and the grading of the original image. That's why I need a little bit more definition and more control. On the question of where I'm pointing, I'm always looking at the areas that are not convincing me. So if I like, let's say, the blacks, I want to make sure that the blacks are not moving. And if I need to do something that is kind of close to those blacks, then probably I need to lock it. I need to create a keyframe, a new handle, so that I can move the next one more freely.
So you lock it by just clicking on the spot.
Yeah, exactly.
You put a point by
if you can, exactly. The idea, whenever you're doing something, the idea is that you should keep things as simple as possible. Not simpler, but as simple as possible. So having a lot of handles is not great, because if you're moving something, you're probably going to create a bump somewhere. So you want to have your curves quite smooth to be as natural as possible. So that's the general idea. I still don't like the light here, but I think in the original photo there is a cloud that is casting shadows, because let me go back here. I think you have a cloud here,
yeah,
and there is a difference in brightness between this guy and this guy.
Yeah.
It's okay. I feel like it's a little bit damaging the perception. So let me see if I can do something about it. Yeah, maybe that's better. And you can carry on, and you go from very big features to the smallest ones, and again, making sure that the perspective is completely accurate would be another one. here the horizon line is, judging from those lines, is probably here, so
Mhm.
it's very, very low. Probably those lines should be a little bit lower. I'm going a little bit lower than these, but it would take a little bit of time to get it right, because then you have to go into the details and change everything correctly, making correct. But yeah, that's pretty much the idea. Do you have any
Cool. And
questions?
when you brought in you took the little pieces that are floating there, and you brought it from, like, so that those are the pieces from the plate. Why did you apply a curve to them? Why were you messing with those?
These samples?
Yes. So why do you have a curve on that? Because you want to
Yes.
be matching to the original plate. Why are you messing with those?
Well, it depends, right? Because you're not matching the same material.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is white plastic probably,
Mm-hmm.
and this is old stone that has been weathered
Mm-hmm.
and has been there for
So you
ages.
just
So
so you just
obviously,
lowered. That was your reasoning. Okay. So you were
it's
lowering it to
yeah,
kind of
it's
simulate stone.
exactly,
All right.
and
Cool.
yeah, you have to contextualize as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. So I like,
Obviously,
yeah, no, the feature I like the most about the curves is the finger pointer, where you can pick a spot on the
yeah,
image and just
yeah,
adjust
yeah,
those. That's powerful. That's the most
absolutely.
powerful thing for sure.
It's incredibly powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess maybe you could combine the two if people like both. I don't know, but this has been a great
Oh yeah.
demonstration. Is there anything else about the curves that we should know about?
Well, this is the way I use them. Yeah, I've rarely used levels, so I'm quite a big fan of curves. And also, I find them very, very handy in other packages like in Nuke as well.
Yes.
I use the grading node as well as the lookup node is independent. I'm not locked to anything in particular. But again, with the lookup, you can do things that you cannot do in any other way. For instance, I remember a long time ago, I've animated crashing waves on a shot, just creating those peaks and troughs, and those became my mask. And I was offsetting a ramp, and the ramp was becoming those peaks and troughs, and in perspective, it was looking like waves
Oh, cool.
moving. So you
That'd be a
can
cool
come up with a lot
demonstration.
of tricks. But yeah,
Cool. And so let's go through the next step. So when you want to, you're done with it, and then you want
yes,
to, send it off to the compers.
sure. So first of all, one thing that you have to remember is you want to
Save.
save your file and do it with
If you're a good teammate,
incremental number.
you say save check, just to remind people to save. But
Exactly.
sometimes when you work on such a huge file, especially PSB, it's like your saves take like 45 minutes to save.
Well, the good thing about Photoshop is that you can save in the background,
Yeah.
right? And you can do most operations while it's saving.
Hmm.
But there is no reason why you would not save frequently, especially because you need to rest your eyes every 20 minutes. So it becomes a very good opportunity for you to have a little walk and maybe look outside the window and rest your eyes, which is
Yeah, for
something that I'm
sure.
not doing enough. But
Yeah.
I've been told off. Maybe we can just mention that in order to check your gradings, one thing we can point out is that when you're slightly unsure about your gradings, you can turn off the LUT. You can check your black points, or you can create curves and kind of increase the contrast in the areas that you feel like are worrisome. So if you want to see how that rock relates with the other rocks, you can just crash the blacks. Or maybe you want to do the opposite. If you are concerned about the shadows for some reason, you could do that. Or you could change slightly the balance of the colors in the image just to neutralize it a bit more if you feel like this is not neutral enough and your perception may be skewed due to that. So all of those little things you can do at the top of your file, and they're gonna help you. They're gonna increase your perception,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to keep them. You can just take them off, and yeah, it's a good check to do.
Yeah, I always try to break the image as much as I can.
Exactly. The concept is that when you have a good matte painting, all the objects, all the layers, all the photos are so well integrated that you can break the whole thing, but you cannot break a single element.
Yep.
So if I'm doing something crazy like that or like that, I can see that the whole image reacts as a single thing, as a single entity, as if I were breaking a photo. I'm not bringing out problems on just one region because everything is kind of coherent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, so we are exporting now. We have the plate foreground, FG, the plate background, PG, and then the castle in the middle. So what I can do, I copy those somewhere else in a new file. Obviously now I see them logged because this is what they are and there is no LUT on top. I make them flat.
What was the hotkey used to merge them?
It's Control E, and then I don't know what it is on a Mac, but
Yeah.
maybe Command E. I don't know. And then with your DMP exporter, you would go in File, Scripts, DMP exporter, and then select the path, export, and then here you can select a few parameters, and then you can put version 01.
So if you guys watching don't know, this is my DMP exporter that I use at studios, and other studios have actually used it as well. I will put a link at the bottom of the video if you guys want to get it. And this is working with the log workflow. It's very flexible, open to your studios and everything. And it's unencrypted, so if you want to actually customize the coding, you can do that as well. You have the option to do the TIFF or EXR, and we're working with the EXRs. The EXRs are amazing and light and work great with Nuke. So you got the unpremult, which will expand the pixels on the outside, especially great for soft edges. And then you would pre-molt it back into Nuke, but it will export all your layers out at once and get it all ready for you to bring it to Nuke, which I will show after his demonstration when we bring it into Nuke.
Excellent. So you hit go, and it's gonna save for you.
So that popped up because he put that version 1 in the suffix, but because if you look at his layers, some of them have spaces, and that's not good for naming conventions, and especially for a different software. So it will force an underscore between, let's say, plate underscore FG or plate underscore BG. That fixes it for you. If you already had it in there, the error won't pop up or warning won't pop up. And yeah, so now you can check it out in the folder.
Excellent. Yeah.
And it's all there
so
for you.
So you have them 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
Cool. And you can see it put version 1 on there for whatever suffix you guys use. You can name it anything you want. Cool. And I'll show it in Nuke. We'll bring it into Nuke. So this is the plate, and I'm just going to use the first frame. It is an animated camera, but it doesn't matter for what we're doing. So I'm just going to use the first frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert it to the log, and I'll use OCIO color space. And we're using ACES, so we'll just do the output as ACES CC. and that will bring it to this form. And in order to get the LUTs to work properly in general, I have the DMP exporter that you can purchase at the bottom of the video that has an action button that will convert 32-bit to 16-bit that also does this gamma shift inside of it in Photoshop. It will be like very, 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 very close to the image, but if you really want to be 100% identical, it's always best to do it out of Nuke. So I had that in there because not everyone's gonna have Nuke and everyone has different workflows. So the point of it is the flexibility and it's not stuck to one specific workflow. So here we'll just do a gamma and hook it up to here. And you just put it to 4545 and we'll look at it and it brings it down to this level. And you'll see that's what he paints on and the ACES LUT will work correctly. And then you just write it out as EXR or TIFF. So we'll just do TIFF and test.exr, save, and all that is the basics, and you just hit render and you pick the frame that you want and you're okay. So I brought in the elements, the castle, all exported from the Photoshop using the DMP exporter, and we have the plate, which you can see all in here is the correct naming conventions. You have the castle _, version 001. And you got the plate, you got the grass and everything like this. So we'll just add the plate first, and not the plate, we'll do the castle first. Let's mess with that. And what we'll do is that we'll do a color space, OCIO color space. On the input, we want to do the inverse of what we did before. And we'll do CC, and you can see now it is back at the right place. And see these little edges here? That is due to the unpremult that expands those pixels, and we'll just premult it and he cuts it out. You could also do it, the inverse, and it cuts it out. The thing is, when you're grading, it's best to grade after, or it's best to grade before the premult, because you're going to be hitting every single pixel outwards. So when you do cut it out, you're not going to have some weird coloring edge or anything like that. So if I was to do a grade, lifting or changing, and then I look at it here, it's still cut out perfect and beautiful. It will be smooth. So that's just the method you can use. And then you just apply it on here to the original plate, which was this one. And A over B. And there it is, matching. And he gave us the grass that he cut out too. So we'll just duplicate this, put it here, put that there, and we'll do a merge, put it on top, and bada bing, bada boom, there it is. And we could mess with the grades. You see it's all matching correctly like he said and was doing in Photoshop, and it's perfect. So we're not doing any projections or advanced stuff like that. This is just the workflow with curves, and the DMP exporter bring out all the layers for you with just one button to export out all the layers. Man, imagine if you had 50 layers, one button, export them all out. So studio plugin at your home. So yeah, great. That was curves, everyone, and me. So I'm gonna have to. I really like the pointer, the hand pointer. That's for sure. So I'll see if I start implementing it. I'm gonna have to start playing with it, see how I like it. Now I'm gonna have to start using those hand pointers for sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was great. That was well done. That's is the basics of curves and matching the plates. Obviously, there's like little things you mentioned that you would push further if you had the time. Speaking of the turmoils of the industry right now, are you seeing any light at the end of the tunnel from what you're hearing?
I think we will have to wait a little bit more.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's a whole other discussion. I was hoping maybe you had some secret thing there, but little hope to pop up. But no, this is we're all kind of crossing our fingers here. It's crazy times.
Yeah.
So
it's very, very difficult.
All right. Well, thanks for getting on here. Everyone, please share it around and get your profiles up on ATMO and make your profiles. Can't wait to see your art up there. And let's try to maybe send a little tweet to Glaze to be like, hey, let's get Glaze onto Atmo. Come on. So cool. Thanks. Appreciate you coming on here. This is fun. Cool.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, dude. So you can follow Marco over on his Instagram page called Missing Horizon. And you can also check out his personal website at marcogenovesi.com. And of course, you can also check out his profile over at atmovfx.com. And don't forget, you can also add him on LinkedIn for Marco Genovesi.